Okay, so what if I wanted to go the other direction? Instead of creating a solid form, I wanted to create a void. And we'll just do this free form, but all the other principles apply that we've learned earlier when drawing these things. So let's go to our massing in sight and let's create an in-place mass. Let it be mass 3, and we'll go on this level 1 down here because again it's always helpful to set that plane that you're placing things on. You've already learned that based on other lessons. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a rectangle in this instance. This will be the easiest way for me to kind of show you how the void works initially. And I'm just going to go here and hit create a solid form for this one. But then what's nice about this solid form is that if I want to draw on those surfaces, what could I do? Well, if I want to draw, let's for instance, a circle, I can say, go ahead and set that work plane to this face, or if I hover and hit tab, click, now that's the plane that I'm actually drawing that circle on. And that's a really nice feature. And once I draw it there, I can click it and I can move it with my arrows around on that surface. Now, I wasn't trying to perfectly put it in the middle, right? But if I wanted to do that, since I'm still on this surface, if I just drew a line from here to here now, remembering that that's geometry, not just a line, and then I ask Revit to move it from SC, snap the center, to the midpoint of that line. Excuse me. And then I can delete that. Now I can say set my work plane to this back surface. And now I can go in there and I'll draw a line, just kind of like across there. And then I can say in this instance, give me an ellipse. And I'm going to draw it on here from the center, 7 units that way and maybe like 3 units that way, okay? And then I'll delete that geometry. Remember, that's not a detail line, it's just geometry. It's a geometry line. So now what I'm going to do is I want to click this line here, that ellipse, this circle, knowing they're both centered, right? If I go to a front view, you see how they're centered on each other, okay? And I hit shift middle mouse to go back to view. And I can see create a form, but not a solid form, this time a void form. And then I can say finish mass. And now I've got a mass. If I go SD on the keyboard, or sorry, more realistic on the keyboard, now I can sort of see how it created a void of those two different shapes through my form, right? And so, this is interesting because this is kind of how they create geometry when you think of those kids' play areas that have holes in them on one end and then a hole maybe of a different shape on the other end. This is kind of how they model that sort of stuff. So interesting to think about. But what if I wanted to cut a corner out of here? Well, what could I do there? Well, what if I click on the whole thing and I say edit in place? Now I'm back in editing mode, and I'll go back to the shaded mode. It's a little easier for me to use. And I know I drew this on level 1. So what I want to make sure of is that I set my work plane back to level 1, right? Once I'm on level 1, I can come in here and I can grab this rectangle tool, right? And I can draw that there. And then I can, what? I can select that and I can say create form, and I say go ahead and create a void form. And now I can dynamically adjust that and pull that up. And any solid object, if I hover, you see I don't see that void form when I hover, but if I hover and tab, there's my void form. And now I can physically adjust that void form if I want, right? But in order to adjust it, I have to say, let's go ahead and finish this mass. And then if I hover again and click tab, you see how now that void isn't available to me. If I want to adjust that void, I have to go back into the mass itself. Then I can hover tab, click, and it's a void. So if I want it to just be however many feet my object is, you see I changed it, and I changed it from the other direction there, okay? So using that void feature, understanding how to use that's pretty important if you want to be able to cut into objects. Another way I could do that, if I kind of hover tab, 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 click on that and delete it, and it goes away. What if I, and we can just try this, what if I say this time to draw that void, I want to come in here to this spline. I'm still on level 1. There's my placement plane. And I'm kind of just drawing a free-form spline, right? And I say create form, a void form. Oh, let me see if I can get that to work. All right? I created a void form, but that void form is kind of what? It's outside my object because it's not physically cutting it. Now that it's physically inside of it and cutting it, now let's see if I can get it. It's a void form, and then I'll say finish mass. It has no solid geometry, so it kind of didn't like that, but it still allowed me to cut a sort of a void into my object. Okay, and you see how being able to change and adjust that kind of change, and now I'm cutting a little void out of the inside of it. Voids are things that are used in families when you're building families to cut openings in walls. That's what you're seeing when a door or window's thrown in. It's an opening that's cut, and that opening is actually a void mass. So next time you throw a door into something in Revit, what you're actually doing is what? And let's demonstrate that right quick while we're in here, just to kind of help you or see that. I'm just going to draw a wall, right? Here's a wall architecturally. I'm going to place that wall right here, and then I'm going to put in just a common door and a common window, right? And then I'll go to a 3D view, and in that 3D view, right, if I go in my visibility graphics and I turn off doors and I turn off windows, I'm left with void openings. That's all that is, people. There's a void opening in that wall. I can't necessarily select it, right? But if I turn those back on, right? If I turn back on the door and the window, and I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to ruin your version of it. If I go in here and I go in to edit that family, one thing that you'll see when you edit that family, right? If you select everything and go to the filter, there's that opening cut. And that opening cut is actually a void. And if I check none and say select that opening cut, right? There's that opening cut right there. That opening cut is simply a void. It's not one that you can edit, but that's when you put it in the wall, it creates a void. So think of the wall as the mass and this opening cut as a void. And that's just another kind of way to start thinking about these things. And like I said, I don't necessarily want you to go in and edit it. I just want you to see the principle of it, that the solids are the solids and the voids are the voids, and it kind of works that way with our massing. Okay, so go ahead and experiment in your little project that you're going to turn in a little bit with a void. It doesn't matter what. Just try and make the void feature work for you so I can see that you have a basic understanding of it.